My name is Sophia Harper. I'm 28 years old, and last month I watched my stepmother, Evelyn Brooks, bar me from my own father's funeral. Dad had been my entire world ever since my mom died tragically, when I was just 15. And yet, Evelyn made sure I couldn't even say goodbye. At the will reading, with a smug, self-satisfied expression, she declared, "This meeting is only for heirs named in the will." But Evelyn had no idea about the truth I carried in my bag. When the lawyer opened my file, her face turned ghostly pale. If you've ever dealt with toxic family members attempting to steal what's rightfully yours, please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear where you're watching from in the comments below as I share my journey of uncovering the truth about my father's final wishes. My father, William Harper, was more than just my dad. He was my hero and best friend. He was a well-known architect in New York City, respected not only for his innovative designs, but for the kindness and integrity he showed in every project he undertook. Despite his busy career, Dad always prioritized our bond. Every Sunday morning, without fail, we'd visit museums across the city, sharing our passion for art and architecture. These trips ended with brunch at a cozy little cafe in Greenwich Village, where he patiently listened to all my teenage worries and dreams, offering gentle wisdom. "Trust your heart, Sophia," he would often remind me warmly, his eyes reflecting memories of my mother. "Your mother's instincts never failed her, and neither will yours." When I was 19, my father met Evelyn Brooks at an art gala. She was charming, elegant, and seemed genuinely captivated by him. After 4 lonely years of mourning my mother, Dad deserved happiness. Initially, I genuinely hoped Evelyn was the person who could fill the empty space in his heart. But Evelyn didn't come alone. She brought 2 teenagers, Dylan and Ava, whose exaggerated smiles and overly enthusiastic laughter felt oddly insincere from the start. They lingered a bit too long over the luxurious artwork and expensive furniture in our home. I tried my best to form connections, inviting Ava to coffee and chatting with Dylan about his college ambitions, but a chill ran beneath every interaction. "They just need some time," Dad reassured me whenever I shared my unease. "They've had it rough, too. Their father abandoned them when they were young, Sophia. That's not easy to overcome." The wedding happened swiftly, just 6 months after Dad and Evelyn's first date. Standing beside him as his best woman, I forced a smile during the ceremony, but Evelyn's vows of devotion and honesty echoed hollowly in my heart. Almost immediately after their wedding, things began changing drastically at home. Photographs of my mother slowly vanished, replaced with flashy, impersonal decor that Evelyn selected meticulously. Our cherished museum trips grew infrequent. Each time Dad and I planned our Sunday outings, Evelyn conjured emergencies or impromptu family obligations, cleverly pulling Dad away bit by bit. As months turned to years, the warmth of our family home faded, replaced by an uncomfortable chill. Yet through it all, I held on to my father's advice, clinging stubbornly to the independence and instincts he'd always encouraged, completely unaware of the storm that was silently brewing behind Evelyn's polished facade. After Evelyn became the new Mrs. Harper, the subtle changes quickly turned obvious and deeply unsettling. My mother's precious paintings, once lovingly displayed in our family room, were systematically replaced with impersonal, abstract art selected solely by Evelyn. Family heirlooms, treasured antiques passed down through generations, were relegated to storage without discussion, replaced by modern furniture that felt cold and lifeless. Our cherished Sunday museum visits dwindled significantly. Evelyn artfully orchestrated interruptions, conveniently timed brunches with her friends, social gatherings for Dylan's sports teams, or Ava's endless rehearsals for ballet recitals. Each manufactured emergency chipped away at the sacred bond Dad and I had nurtured over years. And even when we managed a rare father-daughter day, Evelyn's incessant phone calls, panicking about misplaced keys or trivial household mishaps, cut our time short. Meanwhile, Dylan and Ava settled comfortably into the lifestyle my father's success provided. Dylan, who had just received his driver's license, recklessly crashed 2 luxury cars within a single year. Dad replaced both without so much as a stern reprimand, quietly footing the expensive repair bills. Ava developed lavish tastes, routinely maxing out her credit cards on extravagant clothes and accessories, leaving my father to discreetly cover the debt. Determined not to follow their example, I embraced independence. Despite Dad's offers to fully support me through my studies, I chose to finance my education through scholarships, student loans, and multiple part-time jobs. It wasn't a rejection of his generosity, but an assertion of my own values, something he always understood and respected. "Sophia, you're just like your mother," he would say, eyes filled with pride. She never wanted handouts, always determined to build her own path. After graduating with honors, I accepted a promising architect position in San Francisco. The move was painful, but the distance didn't weaken our bond. Dad and I spoke daily, our conversations filled with discussions about projects, life advice, and dreams for the future. Yet, during my visits back home, subtle changes worried me. My father's usually vibrant spirit seemed dulled, his laughter forced, his movements slower. When I cautiously raised concerns about his health, Evelyn quickly stepped in, dismissing my worries with a patronizing smile. "You're overreacting, Sophia. Your father's just getting older. It's natural for him to slow down a little." Her cold eyes, however, held a different message, a silent warning not to interfere. Over the last year, Dad's health visibly declined. Each visit revealed him more exhausted and increasingly withdrawn. Medication bottles multiplied on his bedside table. Prescriptions frequently changed without clear explanation. During my final visit 3 months ago, Dad insisted on privacy, sending Evelyn reluctantly out of the room. Grasping my hand urgently, his voice trembled as he whispered, "Sophia, there's something I must tell you." But his warning remained unfinished as Evelyn abruptly returned, medicine in hand, her eyes icy with hidden intent. My heart froze when, late one evening, my phone buzzed unexpectedly, Dylan's name appearing on the screen. Dylan never reached out to me directly, so I knew something was terribly wrong. "Your dad's in the hospital," Dylan said bluntly, his voice oddly detached. "Mom told me to let you know." My stomach twisted with dread. "What happened? Is he okay?" "I don't know details," Dylan mumbled, sounding uneasy. "She just told me to call you. He's at New York Presbyterian." The line went dead before I could respond. Panic surged through me. I booked the first available flight, frantically throwing clothes into my suitcase, heart pounding with fear. The overnight flight from San Francisco to New York felt endless. Each passing minute a torment of unanswered questions. By the time I landed, anxiety had reduced me to near desperation. Arriving at New York Presbyterian Hospital at dawn, I sprinted to the reception desk. "William Harper," I gasped breathlessly, desperation clear in my voice. "I'm his daughter." The receptionist directed me to the cardiology wing, where Evelyn sat impeccably dressed, flanked protectively by Dylan and Ava. She rose to meet me, deliberately blocking the corridor to my father's room. "You didn't need to rush back, Sophia," Evelyn said icily, her eyes sharp. "William needs rest, not emotional distractions." "Distractions?" I repeated, feeling stunned and betrayed. "I'm his daughter. I have every right." "The doctors have limited visitors to immediate family only," Evelyn interrupted coldly, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "They specifically stated your father shouldn't have unnecessary stress." I felt my heart shatter. "I am his immediate family." She shook her head firmly, her tone cutting like glass. "We'll inform you if anything changes. Now please leave." Ava smirked behind Evelyn, and even Dylan looked away uncomfortably. Fighting tears, I pleaded at the nurse's station. "Please, I just need to see my father. He needs to know I'm here." The nurse hesitated, visibly torn. His wife listed only herself and her children as permitted visitors. "I'm so sorry." Hours dragged painfully as Evelyn and her children freely entered and exited Dad's room, while I waited helplessly outside. Eventually, a doctor approached cautiously. "Miss Harper, I understand there's confusion," he began gently. "Your father's condition is serious but stable. He's heavily sedated and resting comfortably." Relief flickered briefly inside me. "Please, let me see him." He paused awkwardly as Evelyn emerged from my father's room, intercepting the doctor with hushed whispers. When the doctor returned, his demeanor had changed noticeably. "I'm afraid Mrs. Harper, as medical proxy, insists your father explicitly requested no outside visitors at this time. I must respect her wishes." My voice broke. "That's impossible. My father would never—" "I'm sorry." he interrupted, voice firm yet gentle. It's out of my hands. Over the following days, I desperately tried everything, returning repeatedly, pleading with hospital administrators, even lingering outside hoping to speak privately with doctors. Evelyn had meticulously sealed off all access, isolating me completely. On the fourth day, exhausted and hopeless, I sat alone in the hospital cafeteria when a nurse named Hannah quietly approached me. She glanced nervously around before speaking softly, her voice urgent. You're William Harper's daughter, right? She whispered, leaning closer. Something's not right. Your father has asked repeatedly about you. My breath caught sharply. He's conscious? Hannah nodded, sadness in her eyes. Yes, he's weak but aware. He specifically called your name yesterday. Tears stung my eyes. Can you help me see him? Come back tomorrow around midnight. I'll do my best. But as dawn broke the following day, my phone shattered the fragile hope I'd clung to. The doctor's voice was gentle but devastating. Miss Harper, I'm deeply sorry. Your father passed away early this morning. I collapsed in grief, realizing Evelyn had cruelly stolen my final chance to tell Dad I loved him. She had denied me even that last goodbye. The funeral was held at an upscale Manhattan venue, grand, polished, and completely unlike the quiet chapel my father had always said he wanted, the same one where we had buried my mother. I arrived early, hoping to claim a seat near the front, only to be directed by an usher to a row in the back. The family section, reserved and heavily guarded by Evelyn's presence, was filled with unfamiliar faces, her friends, her relatives, her world. I wasn't part of it. I sat alone, hands clenched tightly in my lap, watching as mourners approached Evelyn, offering condolences as if she were the sole grieving widow. A few of my father's oldest friends spotted me and made their way over, squeezing my shoulder gently, giving me a look that said they knew something wasn't right. When the eulogy began, Evelyn stood before the crowd, dabbing non-existent tears with a silk handkerchief. William was my rock, the love of my life. He adored our blended family, our children Dylan and Ava, our home. She never mentioned me, not once. My name, my existence, was erased from the narrative she painted so carefully. The final insult came when it was time to view the casket. I stood quietly, waiting my turn, when Evelyn's brother stepped in front of me, his expression cold. Family first, he muttered firmly, blocking my path as if I were a stranger. By the time I was allowed to approach, they were already closing the casket. My last glimpse of my father was rushed and incomplete. A flicker of his face beneath the lid, and then he was gone. At the reception afterward, I lingered near the back, numb with grief and anger. That's when I saw Evelyn speaking in hushed tones with a man I recognized as Marcus Fielding, a well-known estate attorney. We'll proceed with the reading on Tuesday, he told her, glancing over at me without acknowledgement. Everything is in order. Good, Evelyn replied with a smile too polished to be genuine. William was very clear about his wishes. Everything is exactly as it should be. I left the reception early, barely holding myself together. I sat in my car outside the venue for what felt like hours, sobbing until my chest physically ached. Not only was my father gone, but I had been locked out of every part of his passing. The grief was suffocating, and Evelyn was winning. That night, just before midnight, a knock came at my hotel room door. Standing there was Irene Fletcher, my father's longtime assistant. Her face pale, her eyes anxious. I couldn't let this go on, she said quietly. Your father gave me something. He made me promise to deliver it to you if anything ever happened. She handed me a sealed manila envelope. He said, you'd know what to do. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the envelope in my hands. My father's wax seal, marked with the insignia from his grandfather's ring, was unbroken. Irene had already slipped out the door, glancing nervously over her shoulder, whispering that Evelyn had been going through his office and firing staff. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal and unfolded the contents. Inside were 3 items: a handwritten letter on my father's personal stationery, a sealed legal document from a law firm I didn't recognize, and a small brass key taped to a card bearing an address and box number for Empire National Bank. The letter was addressed simply, My dearest Sophia. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And not the way I had hoped. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I know Evelyn has likely made things difficult for you. I made a mistake trusting her. Over the last year, I began to suspect she wasn't who she claimed to be. Things started going missing. Old friends were quietly pushed away. My prescriptions changed and made me feel worse. I noticed I was forgetting things. I felt like a guest in my own life. At first, I blamed age or stress, but then I discovered something. Evelyn had been in contact with her ex-husband, the one she said abandoned her. That wasn't true. I confronted her once, and she twisted my own doubts against me. But I started documenting everything. 6 months ago, I rewrote my will with a new law firm. Enclosed is a copy. The key leads to a safety deposit box with documents and proof. Photographs, audio recordings, and my personal notes. If Evelyn challenges anything, you'll need what's in that box. I wanted to tell you all of this in person. I tried, but she never let me be alone with you for long. I hope you'll forgive me for not protecting you and myself sooner. I love you, Sophia. Your mother would be proud of the woman you've become. You're my greatest joy. With all my love, Dad, tears blurred my vision as I finished reading. I held the paper to my chest, grief rising in my throat. My father had seen it. He had known. And he'd taken steps, careful, secret, loving steps to protect me and his legacy. The next morning, I went to Empire National Bank. The manager examined my ID, checked the key, and led me to a private vault room. The box inside was heavy. When I opened it, I found neatly organized evidence, photographs of Evelyn meeting her ex-husband late at night, financial statements showing unexplained transfers from my father's accounts to foreign banks tied to Evelyn's brother. And most damning, copies of medical records with my father's handwritten notes questioning his medication changes. Then I found the flash drive. Back in my hotel room, I played it. It was audio, grainy but clear. Evelyn's voice, unmistakable. When I'm gone for the weekend, make sure he takes the blue pills first, she said. They make him drowsy, so he won't argue about the rest. Another voice, Dylan's, responded. You sure that's safe? A pause. Don't be dramatic. The sooner we're done with this, the sooner we move on. My entire body went cold. This wasn't just manipulation. It was calculated. And now I had proof. Tuesday afternoon, I walked into the pristine offices of Fielding and Burke, uninvited but unshaken. I wore my father's favorite navy coat, the one he said made me look like a leader, and carried the sealed envelope from his new law firm in my bag. The receptionist blinked in surprise when I gave my name. Miss Harper, you're not listed for the reading. I understand, I said calmly, but I'm William Harper's daughter. I believe I have a right to be here. A flurry of hushed phone calls followed, and within minutes, Marcus Fielding stepped out from a glass-paneled conference room, visibly uneasy. Miss Harper, I wasn't expecting. Your client may not have expected me, I said, my voice steady, but I have something I think you'll want to see. He sighed, clearly hoping to avoid a scene. Come in, then. I entered the room to find Evelyn seated confidently at the head of the long mahogany table, flanked by Dylan, Ava, her brother Daniel, and a woman I assumed was her personal assistant. She turned, saw me, and froze. What is she doing here? She snapped, composure slipping. She's my daughter, I said simply, taking a seat opposite her. And I'd like to hear what my father had to say. Evelyn exchanged glances with Marcus, then folded her arms smugly. Fine, but don't interrupt. This meeting is for legal heirs. Marcus cleared his throat and began reading the will dated 10 months prior. As expected, it left the entirety of my father's estate, his home, properties, investments, and control of his firm, to Evelyn. Dylan and Ava were listed as secondary beneficiaries. I said nothing. I let her gloat. And that concludes the reading, Marcus finished. Unless there are questions. There are, I said, rising to my feet. I placed the sealed envelope on the table. This is my father's most recent will, executed 6 months ago with Harrington and Cole. It revokes the previous one entirely. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. That's impossible. William never mentioned another will. Marcus examined the seal, eyebrows knitting as he read the first page. This appears valid. It bears his signature, notarized, and includes a state filing record. Keep reading, I said quietly. Marcus did. The room fell silent. The new will was clear. Evelyn and her children were provided for, but modestly. Trusts for basic living expenses only. The family home was to be sold and the proceeds donated to an art scholarship in my mother's name. The remainder, control of Harper Design Group, real estate assets, and investment portfolios, were to go to me. Then came the final clause. In the event of my death under suspicious circumstances, Marcus read aloud, I direct that my estate fund a full toxicology report and medical review to investigate potential foul play. Evelyn's face went white. She shot up from her chair. This is a lie. A forgery. You manipulated him. He wasn't in his right mind. Marcus held up the document. It's properly signed, notarized, and registered. If you contest it, we'll have to proceed through probate court. Evelyn turned to Dylan and Ava, voice rising. Tell them he would never do this to us. But Dylan looked down. Ava began to cry, and I stood still, watching her panic. My father had seen through her at the end, and now, so had everyone else. The hours following the will reading were a whirlwind. Evelyn stormed out of the conference room, heels clicking furiously across the tile floor, shouting over her shoulder, "This isn't over, Sophia." Her attorney trailed behind her, trying to calm her down as Dylan and Ava followed, stunned and silent. But the real storm came afterward. That evening, I received over a dozen texts from Evelyn. Some threatening, some pleading, others manipulative. One read, "You have no idea what you're doing. That will means nothing." Another simply said, "You'll regret this." I blocked her number, but the pressure didn't stop. When I returned to my hotel 2 nights later after a meeting with my lawyer, I immediately knew something was wrong. My suitcase had been moved, drawers had been rifled through, and most notably, the copies I'd made of Dad's medical records, which I had stupidly left in my room's locked drawer, were gone. The front desk checked the security footage. A man in a hotel maintenance uniform had accessed my room. His face was obscured, and he hadn't been assigned to my floor. Police were notified, but no leads surfaced. Thankfully, I'd kept the originals, photos, letters, and the flash drive, in a portable safe I carried everywhere. The next morning, I received a cryptic text from a blocked number. Back off, or you'll end up next. Fear gripped me, but I didn't retreat. Instead, I contacted Caroline Vega, a high-powered attorney specializing in estate fraud and criminal manipulation. This isn't just about a contested will anymore, Caroline said after reviewing the evidence. This is premeditated coercion, possibly even manslaughter. Your father didn't just update his will. He was trying to protect himself, and you. Evelyn, meanwhile, hired an aggressive probate attorney known for dragging families through years of bitter litigation. Her strategy was clear: delay, exhaust me emotionally and financially, and pressure me to settle quietly. But she had underestimated both me and my father's meticulous preparation. A few days later, I got a message that stopped me cold. It was from Dylan. Need to talk. Without Mom. Meet me at Elm Street Cafe tomorrow, 10 a.m. I arrived early, choosing a seat near the window where I could see the door. Dylan walked in alone, shoulders hunched, dark circles under his eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore, he said as he sat down. Mom's unraveling. She's drinking constantly, she screams at Ava, and... He hesitated. I found pill bottles in her bathroom with your dad's name. Labels torn. Some of them, I don't think he was prescribed them. My breath caught. You're sure? He nodded grimly. I'm not saying she killed him, but something's off. And if you're right, I'm not going to lie for her. I stared at him for a moment, then asked gently, what about Ava? He looked down. She's terrified. She loved your dad, but Mom controls her, always has. Before he left, he slipped me a plastic bag containing 2 of the pills and a photo he'd taken of the prescription bottles. I don't want anything from the estate, he said quietly. But if you're fighting for the truth, I'm not going to stand in your way. That night, I sat on my hotel bed, holding the bag in one hand, my father's letter in the other. It was no longer just a family dispute. It was a war for justice. 3 weeks after the dramatic will reading, we stood in court. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tense, every breath thick with anticipation. Evelyn sat across the aisle, her expression tight and calculated, dressed in a modest black suit that couldn't mask the storm brewing beneath her skin. Her attorney, smooth and polished, tried to project confidence. But behind them sat Dylan, alone. Ava was notably absent. Judge Miriam Caldwell, known for her sharp judgment and zero tolerance for manipulation, presided. She opened with a clear warning. "I have reviewed preliminary filings," she said sternly. "If I find evidence of coercion, fraud, or undue influence, there will be consequences beyond probate." Evelyn's lawyer argued that the updated will was forged or the product of undue influence, claiming my father had not been of sound mind when he signed it. He painted me as the estranged daughter who returned only when there was money at stake. Then it was our turn. Caroline presented the notarized will, supported by affidavits from both witnesses and the filing confirmation with the state. Then came the evidence. My father's handwritten notes, the photos of Evelyn with her not-so-ex-husband, the financial records, and most chilling, excerpts from the flash drive. The judge listened closely as Evelyn's voice filled the courtroom. "Make sure he takes the blue pills first. He gets too alert if you switch the order." There was an audible gasp from the gallery. Evelyn turned pale. Her fingers clutched the armrests so tightly her knuckles turned white. But what changed everything was when Dylan stood up. He stepped forward quietly, asked to be sworn in, and looked straight at the judge. "My mother told us we'd be set for life once Robert was gone," he said, voice steady but heavy with guilt. "I found pill bottles with his name, prescriptions he never should have had. She kept them hidden. She told me it was just to calm him, but I knew something wasn't right." Evelyn hissed at him. "Sit down, Dylan." But Judge Caldwell silenced her instantly. When questioned, Dylan handed over the photo and the bag containing the pills. Caroline ended our case with my father's final video, his voice recorded just weeks before his death. "If you're watching this," he said, eyes tired but clear, "then Evelyn has done what I feared. But I trust Sophia. I've left the truth in her hands." Silence blanketed the room. After a short recess, Judge Caldwell returned. "I find the will dated 6 months ago to be legally valid and enforceable," she said. "Mrs. Evelyn Harper is hereby removed as executor. Ms. Sophia Harper is appointed in her place. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for further investigation into possible elder abuse and medical tampering." Evelyn's mouth opened, but no words came out. As she was led away under questioning, she turned back one last time. Her glare didn't move me. Justice had spoken. Months later, Evelyn was formally charged with fraud, obstruction, and negligent homicide. Her long list of manipulations, marrying while still legally tied to her ex, financial theft, and medical deception, unraveled completely. I kept my promise to my father. I took back the company he built, turned our family home into the Harper Foundation for Ethical Design, and restored the legacy Evelyn tried to erase. On the anniversary of his death, I visited his grave. White tulips in hand, I whispered, "You were right, Dad. Truth wins. I'll carry it forward. For both of us."